What's up YouTube? Thanks for watching last week's episode of the BJJ vlog. I hope you all liked it in 360 and looked around and enjoyed the experience. This episode is just normal footage. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about why is Jiu Jitsu so effective, as a martial art for self-defense and stuff like that. This is not about the difference between sports jiu-jitsu and self-defense jiu-jitsu. No, that's not what it's about. But if you look at jiu-jitsu and you compare it to maybe judo or boxing or Krav Maga or that kind of stuff, why is it that jiu-jitsu is considered the most effective martial art? Well, I think in order to answer that questions, there are different factors involved. One of them being the way that, in Jiu-Jitsu a fight is approached and how it all started, over 100 years ago, with influence from judo, wrestling and Jiu-Jitsu, of course. They looked, Helio and Carlos, they looked at Jiu-Jitsu and looked for a way to adapt the system that works perfectly for someone who is weak. And instead of trying to attack someone who attacks you, the first thing, and this is, in my opinion, one of the very important differences, the very first thing they do is protect themselves. So there's an attack coming. You defend, you deflect, you stop the violence that's coming toward you, and you control your opponent, and then you take over the fight. If you compare this to other martial arts, like boxing, you have to trade punches. Then, there can be a lucky punch, or if you fight a heavier opponent, let's say he has 30 kilos on you, it's very hard to knock that person out. And the other way around, you get knocked out much easier. So you're not really, fighting the fight. Your attacker wants to fight. I think that's basically it. You're not fighting the fight. The attacker wants you to fight. You fight your own fight. So you stop his game. Also, with Krav Maga, I talk a lot about, how I think that Krav Maga is, an illusion. It's not real self-defense. If you look at it, I think 80 to 90% of the Krav Maga you see out there is BS. Yes, Krav Maga can work, but it's not the stuff you see out there. The real effective Krav Maga is really rare. The thing is, with a martial art like Krav Maga, and I talk about it because that's something a lot of people know and that's very popular, the reaction to an attack is to attack, to bring violence to the game. So this has two major downsides. One of them being, if it fails, you're in even a worse spot than you were before. So if your attack fails and your opponent doesn't, react the way you expect him to react, he doesn't, back off or anything, you're in a real bad situation. You really make it worse, especially when you are the weaker person in this fight. The other thing is, if you bring so much violence to the fight, it might really make your attacker aggressive. So then it got from bad to worse, and it can only go south from there. With Jiu-Jitsu, the first thing you do is stop the attack. So you have a control. You're not in a bad spot. You have a control. If your defense doesn't work, you have a backup. You have a backup. You have a backup. So it can only go up from there. And that's a big difference with, for instance, Krav Maga or boxing or Thai boxing. You don't engage the fight your opponent expects you to engage. You make your own rules. And that, I am sure, will scare him, and second, and maybe even more important, it won't bring you in a bad spot. But the question is, how long will that last? Because if you look at judo, and especially the old judo, I think it was very effective as self-defense as well. But doing it in a competition style really broke down judo with all the rules and everything. So my honest question is not, whether or not sports jiu-jitsu is better than self-defense jiu-jitsu, but how long will it take, or even will it happen, that jiu-jitsu follows the same path, that it becomes more of a system? You guys understand that? And I'm really curious about how you guys think about it, because this is my personal opinion in how I see jiu-jitsu as a martial arts and as a self-defense art, but also the dangers that lie in it when it grows more popular. If it grows more popular, people want to do competition. Okay, that's okay. I think we have rule set for competition. That's okay. You have some different variations on it. That's okay. But if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grows and grows and grows, I don't know if it's really the need, but the same thing can happen as you see in Krav Maga and other martial arts. They adapt it to what the people want instead of keeping it pure. And I think the purity in Jiu-Jitsu is what makes it effective. That's why, it works for the weaker persons in our society as well. And, I hope that stays alive. I don't know, but I'm really curious about your opinion. This kind of a question towards you. Let me know what you think of it. Leave a comment, because it's something, that's just going on in my brain. And I'm really curious about, how it will develop, what your thoughts are. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me, why Jiu-Jitsu is such an effective self-defense art, or not. Let me know. By the way, before I forget, one important thing. I don't know for you guys who train Jiu-Jitsu if you know this. Oh, but you always take the fight to the ground. Jiu-Jitsu is ground fighting. Yes, that's true. We are specialized in the ground because statistics show that most fights end up on the ground. But if you do what we do, you're able to control that moment. So if you find yourself in a situation you have to defend yourself, it should be your choice whether or not you go to the ground. Make sure, and then we come back to my first point, that the attacker cannot take you to the ground, that he is not able to apply a throw. So we only go to the ground when we want it. We fight the fight on our rules. And always be aware of what's happening around you. If you're in a bar fight, don't lay on your back, don't pull guard, your head gets smashed. No, then it's more wisely to do some self-defense, or maybe take the other one down, control with the knee on stomach, and, ask for the guy to submit from there. And you don't have to, break his face. The control is enough. But if you go to the ground, pull guard, grapple, well, that's not always the smartest thing to do. So I think you should have that awareness as well. And that's something that's sometimes forgotten in discussions with people who do other martial arts. Oh, you guys fight on the ground, but if you do that and you are in a fight with 2 or 3 people, they will smash you. Yes, that's true. So we don't go to the ground. If it happens, we got a 90% chance compared to you that we will survive in that fight, But it has to be on our terms. So I'm really curious about what you think about, the ideas I just talked about, why Jiu-Jitsu is so effective as a self-defense, whether or not you should always go to the ground in a fight. And just let me know. Leave a comment and let's start the discussion. I'm really curious about it. So thanks for watching and see you all next week. And enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.